What's up, everyone? Alex here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. I wanted to revisit manhood and what manhood means to me because over time, over the past several years, my views about my manhood and what being a man means kind of shifted, evolved. There's been a lot of self-discovery that kind of helped push me into a deeper, more complex area of manhood. And I've talked at length in past videos about manhood, about what it means to me to be a man, how I view masculinity, which to me doesn't really tie in with manhood, but it also kind of does at the same time. And there's been a lot of complexities about how I go about navigating this whole thing. I certainly don't consider myself a binary man, but there was a time when I very much wanted to hold on to being a binary man, a conforming man. Before I came out as non-binary, manhood meant that I had to be masculine, I had to be binary, and I didn't use specific micro labels. I was just a transgender man, just one gender, and that meant a lot to me because I wanted to be able to pass. So masculinity was kind of like a safety net for me. I still kind of feel that way, and I'll go more into that, but masculinity was very important in passing and kind of in self-validation. I did not want to come off as like a faker or someone who's just confused. I didn't want to give anyone the wrong impression. So for a while, I was very strictly a masculine, monogender, binary man, and I didn't really see myself as anything else until I realized that I didn't really feel like I fit in with the overall male experience, whether cis or trans. I kind of felt a little left out in that regard, and I figured it just was me kind of internalizing some transphobia. Like maybe I didn't see myself as valid because I thought maybe I was a different kind of man than the cisgender people around me. So I just kind of internalized this thing, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm just being kind of weird about manhood because I don't look like the men around me. I don't act in a way that helps me really blend in with them. So I just thought maybe I was being hard on myself, and I was like, oh, I'm obviously just not passing well enough, or I'm not doing something right in a way that validates my identity and helps me feel secure in what I am and who I am. And soon after that, I discovered that I was non-binary. I came out as some flavor of non-binary, as a sort of I don't really want to say it, but this is how I feel just in general. I didn't give myself a label immediately, but I knew that I felt like demi-boy, in my case now demi-guy, fit my gender experience. I felt like I had a non-binary malehood that, of course, didn't fit in with the overall male experience in overarching transgender spaces because I was not a binary man. And it took a lot for me to openly call myself non-binary. I had to make sure I was saying that I was a non-binary man. I was a demi-boy. There was always that qualifier because I was afraid that I guess I was afraid that people might try to degender me, assume that I wasn't a man at all, or there was something maybe I was multigender or gender fluid. So I really emphasized being a man no matter what else my gender was doing, no matter how else I like viewed all these aspects of myself, manhood was like the core of everything. And it was the core of every conversation about myself. It took me a while to proudly be a non-binary man, or just non-binary, and to like really embrace the non-binary label. And of course, you know, being a demi-boy, being part male, I had wondered if maybe there was another part to the identity. I've told this story 1,000 times over, being part male and part something else. And I did some exploration, that other part being neutral, which I imagine is pretty common for like demi-boys, that maybe the other part is either genderless or neutral. I've never honestly seen demi-boy being part male and then part something else that wasn't neutral or genderless. It's rare. I imagine that like it still happens. I've never seen anything like that, but I just figured this was a normal, like, I'm part male and part something else, and it kind of led me into realizing that I'm bigender. It wasn't necessarily two parts of genders coming together, making like one gender. It was two distinct genders. And at the time, I thought it was male and neutroy, so I was using neutroy as a label for a while. I started exploring abinarity, you know, being abinary. I would use non-binary and abinary interchangeably, being a non-binary man, having abinary aspects to my gender, sometimes calling myself an abinary man, meaning far outside of the binary without any relationship to it. I had a gender non-conforming phase earlier on before coming out as bigender, because I didn't dabble in gender nonconformity before coming out as non-binary. It didn't feel safe enough. I didn't feel confident enough in doing that. I didn't think it was something I was allowed to do. So, very masculine binary man into a non-binary man who is gender non-conforming. I went through a sort of phase, and now I just kind of consider my presentation and my expression soft masculine. That's what I call it. I would still do the gender non-conforming thing. I don't have the opportunity to do so, I guess. I wear not very masculine clothing, but masculine clothing when I work, and I work a lot. If I'm not working, I'm usually just kind of at home. I don't really get the opportunity to play around with gender nonconformity like I did before. Maybe when I go to the local Pride event next week, then maybe I'll dress up for the march. I don't know. I had the gender nonconforming phase. It was a way to reflect a neutral malehood when it was more of a soft masculine kind of thing. Even exploring like more feminine stuff, I feel like was sort of a way to dabble in the queer malehood that I was exploring. So, not dabble in, but to kind of reflect it. So even like the feminine aspects of my gender nonconformity, I saw that as a way to show that like I'm a man in a queer way, in a non-binary way or a-binary way. So either way, it was centered around my malehood. I think my malehood is always going to be like the core or the central focus of my identity no matter what. I feel safer, you know, identifying as a man, you know, even when I'm like just at work or in my day-to-day life. Like I just consider myself a man. When it's relevant, you know, I would like talk about being a non-binary man. But yeah, for like no matter how the conversation goes, I always focus on being a man. Masculine terminology for myself, he, him pronouns are like my go-to pronouns. I use them everywhere, whereas like my neo pronouns I use pretty much exclusively when I'm online, because I haven't taken that step to ask people to use other pronouns for me. That part scares me. So I don't know. I don't know how to navigate that yet. It would be interesting to see if people could use other pronouns for me. But that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different other thing. And if I take the time, or if I take the big step to like ask people to use my neopronouns in person, and I actually experiencing it happening, I'll come back with a story for sure. Like that would be a big thing for me. Before coming out as non-binary, very strictly masculine binary man, came out as a non-binary man, a demi guy, and I started exploring more queer aspects of myself, more abinary aspects of myself, and then of course, coming out as bigender. Now it's 2 entire genders that I'm sort of juggling here, and each one plays into itself. I experience malehood through neutrality and neutrality through my malehood, and they just kind of meld together, but not into a singular gender like they did before, just into a singular identity. I don't see it split down the middle like I used to. So after coming out as trans Maverick, the autonomous quality of my trans identity, I still considered myself a non-binary man, an abinary man. I have an autonomous trans identity, which means that I'm a transgender man in an autonomous way. I don't consider myself transmasculine. I am male and some kind of aporogender that I call asterisk. And the 2 of those, I don't feel like they fall under any kind of trans label. So not transmasculine, not trans neutral like you would expect. So that autonomous nature of my transgender identity, autonomous meaning like not governed by any kind of overarching like category or alignment in the case of gender. That's how autonomy is used. I have this autonomous quality to my trans identity, so I call it trans Maverick. It could be trans autonomous, but trans Maverick is nice. I like Maverick as an idea, as a concept. So I use trans Maverick. I began to explore more of my neutrality recently. So not just a man and then like this other part that kind of tags along, exclusively, wholly 2 distinct genders that both play a part in how I navigate my manhood and how I navigate gender as a whole, how I navigate being non-binary, being bigender. I still call myself bigender. I still have 2 genders. It just so happens that that neutral part of the gender tends to be more flexible, but it's more so that I'm still getting settled into it, and I still keep trying to find words to fit into that space. And so far it's asterisk, but if I had to make it easier, I would probably call it aporogender, but the distinction of being an unambiguous neutral aporogender matters to me. So, asterisk, that's what that term is. Star-like, like Stellarian. That's where that term comes from. It is based on the concept of Stellarian, but it's not a subset of it. So malehood is still relevant in how I talk about my gender. It's still always going to be relevant. It just happens to be experienced with all these layers on top of it, or rather all these layers underneath it, I think is probably the better way to describe that. All these layers underneath the malehood, and the malehood being experienced through all these gendered lenses, through maverinity, abinarity, aporogender-ishness, that's aperinity, and just all these different things coming together that make up my malehood. And I, now understand that like I have 2 distinct complete genders that are not experienced in equal part, but still harmoniously. So still kind of working together to create an identity, but I do feel one more than the other. Otherwise, like, they're together. male and neutral together, making my bigender identity. And I'm still working to accept that there's more to my malehood, and I want to start digging more into the neutral aspects of my gender. So those are my goals. I don't have anything else. I literally came out as trans Maverin, and now we're here. So I don't know what the future holds. I've always talked about like anything could happen. I'm getting my pen because I have to mark this as like recorded, just so I don't forget. But I've always said, like, you know, you never know what might happen. I could have 3 genders. Maybe malehood isn't going to be like the focal point of my identity, etc., etc. I think malehood's still going to be important to me. It has been since I was like 20 something years old. It's been over a decade since coming out as a transgender man. So I don't see that aspect changing, but so many other things have changed. I've gone through so many little phases of self-exploration, of label usage, and now I just use like 20 labels to describe myself. And I was thinking about all of that the other day. I have all these like kind of isolated little like essays that I write about my gender and about like exploring my identity, coming to all these like conclusions. And I have all these videos about, you know, singular topics on labels that I use and how I use them. And I had realized yesterday that like I never really put like my overall gender explanation anywhere. I've never explained the whole thing all together in one spot. So mostly it's been like I've written essays on having a neutral gender, and then I would call back to like, oh, if you remember, I'm bigender, or, you know, I'm a man, but also neutral, and here's how neutral works for me. So I went and wrote like a quick document where I put all the like complete explanation of my gender, and then talked about like how I'm not aligned, and that I don't see myself falling into the sex binary, so I don't call my sex male or female, and just all these little details. And then I had a list of like broad, let me pull it up. I won't read the whole thing. Let me pull it up on my phone, just so I don't have like lag on my computer. But I had like a list of like broader labels that you could like consider my gender. So I explained like, I'm bigender, these are my genders, these are the pronouns I use. And then I talked about like, you know, I'm not aligned, I'm not gender fluid, I'm not gender flux, and I prefer like masculine terminology for myself. And then broader terms that are accurate for me, and the list is trans man, trans man, multigender, bigender, non-binary, abinary, maverin, aporagender, aperin, and neutral. And the reason why I didn't put trans maverin is because that's a more specific label. I wanted broader labels for this little list, so maverin made it on there. And I just kind of put it all in one place in case it ever comes up, like what exactly is your gender, all the little like intricacies and stuff. I have like a go-to document where I could just like give it to someone to be like, here you go, this is the whole thing, rather than like doing it in essay form or video form. I have it just concisely listed out, all the intricacies, but also written out in a simplistic kind of way, so people could like wrap their heads around all of it. So it's interesting because I really started to connect with the term aporagender, especially, you know, exploring this neutral part of myself that I don't want to be connected to genderlessness at all. I'm starting to understand what aporagender means, and I find it ironic that it's not meant to be related to the binary in any sort of way. not in it, not around it, not between it, but still having a strongly gendered feeling. I like that. And I find it ironic that like manhood is so important to me, but also I have aspects of my identity that fall so far out of the binary. It's very strange. I might get into maybe another aporogender video sometime. I talked about before, but I talked about aporogender in a video as if it was not my own identity because it was before I like started using it as a label. So maybe I'll revisit it. And I want to show off some really nice aporogender flags that I found. There's also that. There's some really nice versions of the flag that are not the pink and blue one. I understand that the flag's supposed to represent being apart from the pink and blue, but it includes the pink and blue. And it's a pleasing color palette, but it doesn't represent the gender properly. So I like that other people have gone more reds, yellows, greens for aporogender flags or apparent flags. I super appreciate that. So shout out to people who make flags, me and so many other awesome people. This is turning into a rant. I'm not even trying to stretch the time out. I'm just rambling, but I have more videos to record. I have laundry to do. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to update my card with new labels because that's important. I want to stay caught up with everything. I'm going to try to. But yeah, I am signing off for now. See you later.